This happened a few weeks ago. I'm a senior in high school, and I've lived in Arizona my whole life. There's not much to do around here. Small town, long stretches of desert, and the kind of quiet that gets under your skin if you're not used to it. But one thing my friends and I have always been into is exploring abandoned places. Old gas stations, junkyards, dried-up water parks, anything forgotten. We weren't out there to vandalize or break the law. For us, it was about the atmosphere, the stillness, the feeling that you were somewhere no one had been in a long, long time. The guy who always came up with the strangest places was Marcus. He was one of those quiet, offbeat types who always seemed to know something you didn't. He'd show up with locations no one else had ever heard of. I never even asked how he found them. One afternoon, he dropped a blurry screenshot into our group chat. It was from a weird, low-follower Instagram account. Grainy photos of tunnels, rusted-out metal, and vague captions. The one he sent just said, "Hundreds of abandoned shafts in the Sonoran Desert. You just have to know where to look." Marcus said he'd messaged the account, and whoever ran it had sent him GPS coordinates. That was all it took. He was locked in. That Saturday, it was me, Marcus, and our other friend, Kyle. I had an old Jeep Cherokee that could handle desert terrain, so we packed up and headed out. We didn't have a real address, just a dropped pin somewhere far into the Sonoran stretch west of Gila Bend. The spot Marcus marked was deep, miles from the nearest paved road. We'd turned off the main highway almost an hour earlier, and the trail we were on was barely recognizable as a road anymore. Just rocks and dust, and the occasional lizard skittering off the path. I kept checking my phone out of habit, even though there was no signal. Kyle, who was riding in the back, was starting to get frustrated. He kept telling Marcus we were chasing a ghost, that we were going to end up lost or worse. But Marcus wouldn't give up. He had that look in his eyes like he was already halfway there in his head. I figured I'd humor him a little longer. He'd never led us totally wrong before. Eventually, just when we were about to turn back, Kyle pointed at something up ahead, off to the right, half buried in a slope of sand and rock. At first glance, it just looked like a pile of broken wood. But as we got closer, we realized it was some kind of collapsed structure. A mine entrance. The front was caved in, but behind the wooden supports was a black opening, just wide enough for someone to slip through. Marcus didn't say anything. He just pulled out his phone, dropped a pin, then glanced back and said, "Told you." Kyle rolled his eyes and called it dumb luck, but even I had to admit, it was unreal that we actually found something. I parked a few yards from the entrance on a flat patch of dirt. We grabbed our gear and got out. Marcus had even brought masks, which I thought was overkill at the time. The closer we got to the entrance, the more unstable it looked. Marcus picked up a rock and tossed it in. We waited. A second passed, then clink, 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 then silence. It was deep. He turned back to us and said, dead serious, "If you fall, you're not getting back up." We started the descent. Thankfully, it wasn't a vertical drop. The shaft sloped at a steep angle, but we could walk it without ropes. The floor was soft and crumbling underfoot, and old wooden beams still lined the walls. Somehow they'd held up all this time. The deeper we went, the colder it got. The only sounds were our own steps and the occasional crack of loose gravel shifting under our boots. Eventually, we couldn't see daylight behind us anymore. The shaft leveled out into a larger tunnel system. Old rails, rusted carts, and broken boards littered the ground. The air smelled stale, thick with dust and something else I couldn't place. That's when I realized how smart Marcus was to bring those masks. We chose a tunnel and started walking. Nobody was talking much. We weren't really looking for anything. We just wanted to see how far it went. The silence started to feel heavy after a while. Every few steps, I'd shine my flashlight at the walls, half expecting to see something carved into the rock. There wasn't much, just darkness, dirt, and the occasional scrap of rusted-out metal. Honestly, it felt like someone had already cleared the place out decades ago. But then we heard it. A faint noise, from deeper inside the tunnel. It sounded like something being dragged. At first I thought I imagined it, but then I saw Marcus freeze. Kyle motioned for us to kill our lights. We did. And then we waited, standing there in total black. The sound came again. Slow, scraping, like metal, or maybe wood. Something heavy being pulled across the ground. It echoed in a way that made it impossible to tell how far it was. Just that it was moving, and it was getting closer. We stood there in the dark for what felt like a minute, maybe more. The sound kept coming. Then, Kyle's flashlight flicked on by accident. Just for a second. But that second was enough. The dragging sound stopped. Nobody moved. The second that flashlight blinked on and off, everything in that tunnel went still. No more scraping, no echo, just silence thick enough to choke on. I could hear my own breathing inside the mask, short, shallow. My ears were straining so hard, I thought I could hear the blood moving through my head. Marcus whispered, barely audible, "Don't turn it back on." So we stood there, in total black, the kind of black that swallows you, where your own hands don't exist unless you're touching something. It felt like we were buried alive. Then the tunnel groaned. I don't even know how else to describe it, this low, vibrating noise, like pressure shifting in the rocks around us. The air itself felt tighter, heavier, like we weren't alone anymore. Marcus slowly, carefully, reached into his jacket and pulled out a red glow stick. He cracked it with both hands, and the faint red light lit his face just enough to see his eyes. They didn't look calm anymore. The glow stick barely touched the darkness, but it was enough to give us direction. Without saying a word, we started moving backward, slow, controlled steps. Kyle was behind me, and I could feel his hand on my shoulder, like he didn't trust the ground under his feet. We passed the rusted-out cart we saw earlier, then a pile of collapsed wood. I was counting the landmarks, mentally retracing every step we took. But something felt wrong. The tunnel was longer. I knew that didn't make sense. We hadn't taken any turns, but the tunnel now felt deeper, like we were walking twice the distance back. And every few steps, I had the same feeling you get when you know something's behind you. Marcus stopped. He held up the glow stick and pointed toward the wall. Scratches. Deep, jagged lines carved into the stone. Dozens of them. Some looked recent, fresh enough that you could still see chalky dust clinging to the edges. Others were old and barely visible. Kyle finally spoke. "This wasn't here before." I didn't answer. I couldn't. He was right. Marcus was already pulling out his phone again. He turned on the flashlight, briefly, just long enough to snap a picture. The flash lit up the walls for half a second, and in that half second, I saw something I'll never forget. In the very back of the frame, just past where the glow stick reached, was a figure. Tall, thin, not moving. Then the flashlight cut off again. Marcus didn't say a word. He just looked at us, dead serious, and mouthed, "Run." We took off. No more careful steps, no more silence. Just boots hitting dirt and gravel as we sprinted back the way we came. The glow stick bounced in Marcus's hand, painting the walls in chaotic red shapes. Every few seconds I'd glance back, but the tunnel behind us was pure black. Nothing. And yet I couldn't shake the feeling that something was following us. Not running, not making a sound, just there. The slope came up fast, the steep part of the mine shaft. Climbing it was like trying to run up a slide. Kyle slipped once, hard, but Marcus grabbed him, and yanked him forward without slowing down. I don't know how we made it back to the surface. I just remember the sudden rush of dry desert air hitting my face and the sky above us, gray-blue and lifeless. We didn't stop running until we got to the car. But when we looked back toward the mine entrance, we saw nothing but that splintered wooden frame and the yawning black behind it. The desert was dead silent. Not a sound, no wind, no echo of movement, just stillness. Kyle bent over, hands on his knees, trying to breathe through the mask. Marcus stood completely still, staring back at the mine with a strange look on his face, like he wasn't sure we'd actually made it out. I turned toward the Wrangler and unlocked it with shaking hands. The beep of the alarm felt loud and wrong in all that silence. We jumped in, slammed the doors, and for a minute, none of us said a word. I started the engine. The tires spun for a second in the loose dirt before gripping. We pulled a quick U-turn and got back on the dirt path we came from, if you could even call it a path. I kept looking in the rearview mirror, even though I couldn't see anything but dust and sunburnt shrubs. About 5 minutes later, Kyle finally broke the silence. That thing in the photo. You guys saw it too, right? Marcus didn't answer right away. He pulled out his phone and opened the picture he took, then passed it to me. I looked. There it was again, right at the edge of the light, like it had been waiting. A tall shape, not fully human, just enough to seem human, like something trying to be one. The limbs too long, the head slightly tilted. No eyes, just the idea of a face. I passed the phone back and kept driving. We weren't supposed to see that, Marcus finally said. That mine. I don't think it's listed on any maps. No kidding, Kyle muttered. But Marcus shook his head. I mean, really not listed. I checked again. It's not even on the satellite overlays. No shafts in that area. Not even a landmark tag. Just open desert. That made something cold settle in my stomach. Like we'd crossed into a place that wasn't supposed to be here. Then Marcus said something that made it worse. The account that sent me the location, it's gone. I looked over. Gone like deleted. He shook his head. Gone like it never existed. I searched the handle, even the messages. Nothing. No trace. It's not just deactivated. It's like it was never there to begin with. We all sat in silence again. I sped up. The way back felt different, like the road didn't want us to leave. It twisted slightly in ways I didn't remember. Small turns, dips that hadn't been there before. The sun hadn't moved much, but the shadows were longer. Like something behind us was casting more than just light. Kyle was looking out the back window now too. Then he said it. There's another glow stick. I hit the brakes. We all turned. And sure enough, on the path behind us, far in the distance, way too far back to be ours, there was a faint red glow. It flickered. Just once. Then went dark. We didn't speak for a while after that. The red glow stick, that second one, had no business being out there. We'd only used one, and Marcus still had it in his hand. No one else was out there. No one should have been out there. But something was. The road out felt longer than the way in. Every now and then, the Wrangler would dip or rattle like it hit something underneath. Roots, maybe, or old wood. But there were no trees around, just sand and rocks and heat. And that feeling, that same feeling from the mine shaft, the one where your brain keeps whispering, "Don't look behind you." Eventually, we saw the main road again. I felt a small wave of relief in my chest. I think we all did. I sped up, tires kicking dust into the air. That's when Kyle noticed something. Wait, where's the fuel gauge? I looked down. It was gone, not empty, not broken, just gone. The little digital square that showed our fuel level was a black void. Every other dashboard light worked fine. The speedometer, the radio screen, even the AC. But the fuel gauge was just gone, like it had never been there. Marcus leaned forward, staring at it. "That doesn't make sense," he whispered. I didn't respond. I didn't want to respond. A few miles later, the gauge flickered back on. It read 13%. That wasn't possible. We'd filled up the night before. Full tank. There was no way that short drive drained it that much. Wranglers aren't that bad. But then something worse happened. The radio turned on by itself. Just static. Loud and sharp, like something was trying to force its way through a broken speaker. It didn't matter what button I pressed. The knob didn't respond. The volume wouldn't go down. It just kept blasting that hiss. Until, suddenly, there was a voice. Only for a second. A whisper layered inside the static. It said, "Still watching." Then the radio cut off completely. No one said anything after that. Not for a while. We made it back to town just before dark. Familiar streets, street lights, the glow of gas stations and fast food signs. But none of it felt right. It was like we had brought something back with us. I dropped the guys off and drove home alone. The whole ride, I felt watched. I kept checking the rearview mirror, even though I knew nothing was there. Or at least, nothing I could see. When I got to my place, I parked, cut the engine, and just sat there for a minute. The air in the Jeep was warm, but my skin felt cold. Then I noticed something on the dashboard. A fingerprint. Just one. In the dust. But it wasn't mine. It was too long, too thin. The kind of finger that didn't belong to any of us. And it was pointing toward me. That night I came back home completely drained. My head was spinning with thoughts. The mine, the sounds, the picture at the gas station, and that long fingerprint on the dashboard of the Wrangler. I walked into the kitchen and flicked the light switch, and it turned off by itself. I turned it on again. It stayed on for a few seconds, then went dark. Everything in my house started acting strange. The lights, the TV, the radio. Every time something tried to make a sound, it was like a whisper, like something was trying to say my name. I went to my room. My phone screen was on. The camera was recording, facing me. I didn't turn it on. I never even touched it. I opened my gallery, and there was a video I had never recorded, dated from the day of the trip. I pressed play, and it showed the three of us walking into the mine. The problem? There were 4 shadows following us, standing still behind us, unmoving. I shut the phone and threw the blanket over myself. I tried to sleep, but then the whisper came again, right next to my ear. "You can't escape." Then something even weirder started happening. Every night since then, I keep having the same dream. I'm walking back into the mine, but this time, I'm alone. I go deeper, and I start hearing the same sound, the same whisper, the same word. Keep digging, keep digging. And right before I wake up, I always see it. A face with no features, standing in the dark, getting closer. Since that day, my life hasn't been the same. I can't go back to who I was. Because the truth I didn't want to admit is, we didn't just enter that mine. The mine entered us. If you made it this far, thanks for staying till the end. I know it was scary, but this story had to be told. This channel is just getting started, and I need your support. Subscribe so you don't miss the next horror drops. Like if the story gave you chills, leave a nice comment. I read them all and share it with friends who love horror and mystery. Each video gets darker, deeper, and more twisted. Tell me in the comments, should I make part 2? Or do you want more real stories like this? See you in the next nightmare. And remember, don't turn on the lights tonight.